Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, first of all, this gathering is being organized by the Game Changers Leadership Promotion Network. And most of us would be hearing this for the very first time. So the quick question in 1 minute would be, who are we? What is the Game Changers Leadership Promotion Network? The simplest way I will explain it is that we are a community of very passionate readers who are dedicated to transforming lives through the power of books. And this is fueled through three convictions. One, we are convinced that the surest path to sustainable development for societies is the enthronement of a readership lifestyle. That's one. Then number two, we value the power of shared knowledge and ideas, fostering a supportive community where readers can connect, discuss, and grow together. For instance, on Sunday, 6 p.m. on Sunday, we'll be having like a book review. We have books for the month, and then we'll come together to do the book review at the end of the month. And then lastly, we promote continuous learning and personal growth through the reading. Because for us, reading is not just for reading's sake. Reading is about what does it cost in you? How does it help you grow? How does it help you learn? That's in the simplest way. But if you go to LinkedIn, run the name, you see us and you see a number of things we do. If you go to our website, thegropn.org, you'll get some more brief. So that will be that for that. Let's get right to it. Our guest this evening is Chioma Emehel. And for those of us that joined exactly 8 o'clock, we did a quick 2-minute summary of her research work. She's a PhD candidate and researcher in chemical engineering at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, United Kingdom. And her focus is on sustainable energy and carbon management research. And then there in school, she's part of Outreach Ambassador at the university, and she's actively involved in science communication and community engagement initiatives. And before the PhD, she did a master's in plant physiology from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. And before that, she was at the University of Nigeria. We were all there together. Great human being, I must tell you. And then all that. Over and above all, she's a great wife. At least I know her husband. And then a great mother too. I've met her children. She's an amazing human being. So I'll leave it. 10 years ago, if you remember this book, The Wonder of Books, 10 years ago, I wrote the first edition 10 years ago. This is the 10th anniversary edition. So 10 years ago, I'd ask you to make a contribution to the book, to write a quote, what reading means to you. And I recently sent you a screenshot of that. Do you have it there? Don't worry, I have it right here, so I could.
Yes, I have a copy here.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
I can't hear you. I said, should I read or you want to read it? Either of us can do it.
Okay, I can read it. It's fine. So the quote says, reading as a hobby started started with fiction and stayed that way for a long time. Sorry, let me just adjust this so I can see it all. Okay. And I said with books, my imagination was made fertile and my horizon broadened, my perception of the world changed, and my vocabulary greatly colored. My hunger to read more increased because, like a fire being fed, it continued to rage. Books made me realize I had to push my limits, and anytime I thought I had attained perfection, another book showed me why I had to up my ante. I can say that the flavor of my personality has been greatly colored by the knowledge gained from reading because I have combined a lot of people's experiences with mine, which has put me ahead and given me a class of my own. End of
Fantastic,
quote.
fantastic, fantastic. So this was you 10 years ago. So tell us, what does it feel like today with reading?
It actually felt very nostalgic to see that quote because it's just a very apt description of how I felt then and how I still feel now. I, of course, I've experienced reading much more over the years, but I can tell you that the contribution of the things I have read to my life they're unquantifiable. So yeah.
Okay, okay, fantastic. So let's go back to the very beginning. Could you tell us what sort of environment you grew up in that gave you that perspective towards reading and helped you to develop that culture?
Oh, okay. So growing up as a little child, one thing was my parents still are very avid readers. My dad and my mom, they love to read a lot. And so from a very young age, I got exposed to all sorts of reading, storybooks, inspirational books, religious books, you name it, we had it at home. So I remember at a point when I was about 6, 7, I'll climb up my dad's wardrobe just to get into his top shelf to have access to his pay slips, letters, anything I could find really. That was how hungry I was to read. So I would pick anything and just read. And it wasn't just me, also for my siblings. So um we always had that culture of reading. No one ever got shut down for reading in my family. And my extended family also. Actually, where I'm from, my hometown, we are known to be very, very, or let's say, highly intellectual. So it's just a family culture that has just been passed down and supported by the people in our environment. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Now, picture that somebody is listening to you, a parent or parents listening to you, and feeling like, okay, I'm not like her parents. I don't read, and I'm not from that village where is intellecting, so to speak. And then, but I would like to have my children read. You know, what do you say to those parents?
Okay. Taking it back or taking the lessons from my parents, my grandparents were not academics in the sense of, today, but my parents got that, support to read. And I think the things they did differently were, first of all, just to know that this is possible. Even if you didn't have the background, you can become a reader. Another thing they did was just to stay determined and very dogged. My mom, she's a very dogged person, and she made up her mind that she was going for this, and she did. She even had her master's degree, which is a very huge achievement for someone
Mhm.
coming from a background here. So as a parent, even if you didn't have the background, you can build up yourself to be a reader and then in turn also build up your children. That's one thing I'm going to say. Yeah.
Okay, so let's picture you have put the burden on the parents to become readers and
Mhm.
then for them to then make their children readers, But if the parents, like they say in Igbo, you don't learn how to use your left hand at old age.
You
And I
don't?
get that I can. Uh,
I
I'll
beg to
try to
differ.
picture how to speak in Igbo. I differ too, right? But people
Mhm.
believe it. That's the
Mhm.
problem here, right? Because
Yeah.
you tell somebody and the person tells you, I'm too old to do that now, right? So, so if the person tells you, okay, I'm too old to do that, but I know that it is valuable. I know that it's important, and I want to do it for my children. So,
Mm.
what do you say they can do if they want to excuse themselves, but they want to do it for their children? What's like, what's your perspective around that?
Okay, first, I don't agree that you can learn new things. It's just you, excuse me, you have to believe that you can, because you cannot excuse yourself in building a culture. You have to be in it in some shape or form. I mean, it's not like parents are expected to read huge volumes of textbooks to prove that they can read. But can you pick up a newspaper? Can you can you think? Can you force yourself to be in an imaginative space? That's already, the beginning. And it's not enough to say, oh, um, boy ABC is reading. Does he have two heads? You know those things we were told when we were, does she have two
Mhm.
heads? You start curating the space for yourself. So whatever age, you can pick up a book. My grandma, that's my dad's mom, even though she didn't go to school to learn ABC, she would pick up her Bible in her old age. She was a grandma already, great grandma even, and she would read. She would take her time slowly, but she was reading. If someone at that age can read, I don't think anybody has any
Mm,
excuse. So,
mm,
yes, I would encourage parents, no matter how busy, no matter how stressful adulting can be sometimes, create the time, little short time, and start from where you are. Even if it's a book on Cinderella, just start from there. It doesn't have to be Harry
okay.
Potter. Yeah.
Okay. So now you're insisting that the parent should not excuse him or herself.
Yes.
That a very brilliant thing you said is you can create a culture that you are not a part of in some shape or form. Now,
Yeah.
could you tell us how important is that to the raising of those children to be readers, drawing from the experience of you and your parents?
Okay. I would maybe break when it comes to children, break the age range into maybe 0 to 10 and then 10 above, right? 0 to 10 or whatever at whatever age they are, what they see, it has a very huge impact on them. So you're modeling something to your children. If you were not reading previously and then you started reading when your child is like 15 or 16, firstly, you're modeling that they can learn new things even when they are much older. You're showing them that you're up for a challenge. You see now. So, um, for me as a child, watching my dad read on Sunday evenings under the mango tree, read every other evening, have conversations about it, about what he was reading, it just made me, I mean, I didn't know any other word other than that. I remember one very core memory for me was when my dad and my siblings, we had this John Grisham book and we all were reading the book at the same time.
Hmm.
So after dinner, we would all go to the bed, and whether you were lying down, you were sitting, you were bending, in whatever way, just as long as you're seeing it. So imagine four people reading one book. Of course, we're not all reading at the same pace, but everybody had to wait for the other person to catch up, and then we'll flip. So we're reading The Streets Lawyer, I think, by John Grisham, and it reinforced something in my head. So I knew, of course, my dad is not going to throw away any book. And that was just one of the memories. I remember I was going to the library at a very young age to play, to read, to do whatever activities. So those things, they build up that interest for children. They expose them to it, firstly, so that they're not scared of books. Because for real, there are people who are scared of books. They see 300 pages and they're like, oh my God. But when you're around volumes and volumes, you know that, you can do this. So that's the first thing, the exposure or the modeling is the first thing. You modeling it as a parent, you exposing your kids to the books from a very early stage or wherever you are now, because you can't turn back the wheels of time. So wherever you are at this point, it's the second thing. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, with
Okay.
these things, I think it's really about sharing your perspective and insights, and then we expect whoever is listening to pick what they want to pick from
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
You're not rejecting it altogether. Yeah, well, that's fine. So let's talk about 2026. 2026, two problems, two key problems, right? Will
Yeah.
be it's a time of screen. It's a screen. Everybody, 1 year old child, you want to shut him up or him or her up, just give the person the phone. You want to get the pad, give to the person and all that. That's on the one hand. And then on the other hand, it's like the bankruptcy of attention span. People cannot sit through things. Before you
Yeah.
know it, you just want to, even if it's to scratch your head, you just want to do something to get your mind off stuff. So what would you say I mean, I've identified them as some of the biggest challenges of the time, right? So how do
Yeah.
you unpack that problem vis-a-vis the need to do reading, which is typically a serious business, no matter how you want to play with it.
It is. Um, for the problem or the challenge, in as much as I agree, yes, screens are increasingly an issue. I think the first real problem is that we have refused to take ownership of our time. So
Okay?
we just allow anything to happen to us. We refuse to create the life that we imagine we want to have. And just feel like maybe just like an Instagram reel, once you swipe left or swipe right, everything's just going to be perfect. But life doesn't work like that. As parents, as adults, we must take ownership of our time. What do you want to do with the time? And the reason screens are distracting is because we allow it to. If a child is crying, that's not a 2026 problem. Children have been crying from the get-go. Children have been crying generations before you were born. You probably cried worse than your child. So that's not a new problem. But unlike before, yes, parents just, pop a screen to help them babysit. But there are other things that can be done. You could read a book to your child, which I think is not a very popular thing. But sometimes when you're, for example, on a bus and you're going somewhere and your child wants to watch Coco Melon, you get a book and start reading to the child. They will resist the first couple of times, but they'll get used to it. So one strategy that I used when my children were much younger in their tantrum years, back in Nigeria was we always had books in the car. So rather than a screen or just staring mindlessly out of the windows, they would just be flipping coloring books or books that have shapes, whatever age relevant material. And that was one way to kind of keep the mind engaged. That's also one way to kind of slow down the fast-pacedness of life. Because right now everything is, moving at a very
Yeah,
fast pace. Yeah, but
sure.
you can within your house slow down time. And it starts
Wow.
with you as the parent, unfortunately. I just want to quote my parenting coach here, Wendy Luge. She says, parenting is first about you. It's first about you, the parent, more than it is about your child. Because if you get your thinking right, you get your strategies in place, your child will automatically begin to shape up.
Wow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Very brilliant. Okay. This question, there are parents who just tells you, or there's the parent who simply tells you, my child just doesn't like reading, just doesn't like reading, because again, you might want to argue that they have tried a couple of times and then, that's sort of whether it's learning disability or whatever made the child.
Yeah.
So they just say, my child doesn't like reading, tried. So what do you say to that parent? Do you agree with the parent that that child is irredeemable when it comes to reading, or is there something you can say to that parent to flip it around?
Um, no child is irredeemable. When a child doesn't like reading, sometimes there are different layers of things going on at the same time. Sometimes it's because there's trauma associated with reading. If you are the kind that associates very strict discipline with reading time or uses reading as a punishment, then your child is already associating trauma with, if I do something bad, mommy or daddy is going to ask me to go and read. And so reading is no longer fun for them. It could also be, like you mentioned, reading disability. That's another challenge. So there could be so many different things happening. But what I would say to such parents is your child can read, know it, believe it, see it in your mind, and then calm down. Like calm down, because when you're calm, then you'll be able to think out of the box and figure out ways to help them. If a child has reading disabilities, are there books written for that suits the child, or that matches, that helps them, or that they can engage with at the level that their disability allows them to? They're probably all those. And so a lot of parents don't think about that. Another thing is also the child's reading style or learning style. I'll use an example, my own personal life. I have a daughter who can sit down, pick up a book, and just read. But my son, when he's reading, he wants to lie down, put his feet on the wall. He wants to, bend in very unnatural ways. And sometimes it's like, can you just sit still? But I've realized that is how he finds it easy because of his learning style. He learns in with movements. So it's easier for him to engage with the book like that. So I just get a bean bag and say, you know what, you can flip it every which way as long as you're reading the book, and maybe take like 10 minutes break so that it's not overwhelming. So when he says, I don't know this word, or I'm tired, or this, I just meet him where he is, because every child is different. So sometimes we as parents, we're fond of, just posting our expectations on the children rather than trying to understand the feedback that we're getting from them. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I also think we've talked about learning disabilities. There will always be a place for seeking professional help, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that movie, like Stars on Earth? Did you see it?
No, I don't
Uh,
watch
I
movies.
mean,
I'm a
don't
book
worry,
person.
don't
I'm
worry.
not a movie person.
Yeah, yeah. I just happen to be both, you know.
Oh,
So it's like a
lucky you.
little boy, Ishan, you know. I was, it's that movie you see, you see what happened to the boy and you are moved to tears, you know. The guy
Oh,
had
wow.
dyslexia and became, the whole tantrums just to run away from school and whatever. And I mean, until somebody who understood the problem, because
Hmm.
sometimes we don't even know the problem, and then you excuse the child, and then that's fine. So much of that with very brilliant examples from your own life. So the next question would be: so what sort of practical? So the key word is practical. Practical habits or activities or whatever you want to call it that parents or caregivers or people or adults in charge of children or working with children, what sort of practical habits can they wire into the everyday life of the family or of the school to encourage or help foster that the reading lifestyle, if we put it that way?
Okay. You mentioned school. School is supportive mechanism. The upbringing of the child ideally starts from the home. So the home is like the primary place where they learn. Any other thing happening in school is just supporting what you're doing at home or not. But yeah, that's not the primary place where they grow. And for practical things, first will be to create a strategy. If your children are not reading or are preferring screens, is possibly because there's no structure to their time and to your own time as a parent. So first would be to create a structure. Can you carve out 10 minutes every day, or 10 or 30 minutes every week, to just sit down and do something? And this cuts across, it would be reflected in different ways depending on the age of the child. If you're talking about children at 3 years, 4 years, the attention span is about this big. So
I imagine.
you need to also carve out or be realistic when you're making that time. You know, it could be the structure could look like um, making sure you have, you're reading bedtime stories consistently. The structure could look like, we have um, a reading day or book related day every month. Maybe not sitting down to read volumes of book, but doing some coloring at that age, doing some puzzles, just scribbling, just having contact with paper. That is also building um, that interest. Using and okay, let me finish on structure. Structure for more or older children also looks like, you know, creating a form of system where if you have a lot of kids or if you have more than one child, one person picks a book and then everybody reads that book and then we're going to have a conversation about it. Like just like an informal book review at the end of the month or the week. Any book at all, whether it's a cooking book or it's a sports book, just you name it, audiobook even, if your child is at that level, that would definitely force the whole family into a system of calm for that 30 minutes. We're not cooking, we're not watching match, we are not washing clothes, we're not doing anything. We're just talking about this book. It's a good place to start. Apart from structure, another thing would be to actually buy the books. So if your house is full of screens on every wall, every room has a TV, but there's no bookshelf anywhere, then you already have a problem. So you have to have the books and you buy the books at their level. You know, um, I have books, audio books, there are these books for kids where you press and then it makes a sound. I have books with bold letters, bold prints, simple letters, three-letter words, those kind of things, because that's the age where some of my children are. I don't have a lot of books with lots of chapters, but we're getting into that slowly. So there's no point me going to buy because Mrs. A is doing this or so person is reading 700-page book and then I want to buy that. No, you start from where you are and then you slowly build it. And to reiterate what I said again, you have to read yourself. You just have to read yourself. Okay, so that's three. Fourth practical tip would be curate your environment. Begin to find yourself or seek people who also have similar interests as you. If you want to build a reading culture or raise children that have reading culture, you cannot be around people who would rather talk about movies or have movies playing 247. Or we say, this is your book that you're reading. Ah, it's too much, you. That kind of this thing. You want
Mm-hmm.
to be in spaces where people are also talking about the books they've read. So actively seek such circles. And one very cheap way to find it is just go to a library. If you go, people that come to the libraries to read. When
Yeah.
when I was in um SS1, a friend introduced me to the state library back in Ekiti State. So I would go to the state library. I think I wasn't up to 14 then. I got to the state library, got a card, and I would go to the state library. And, I was always surrounded with people that were interested in reading books. Though that's also stemmed from being exposed to a library at a very young age. I had a dictionary when I was in primary three. So, but that has now been the pathway. I'm not going to the marketplace looking for people that read. So start curating your environment, start coming around. It doesn't mean throw away your friends, but start um moving yourself towards, spaces where people talk about books. And that will also motivate your children and start showing them the possibility of a world where people actually, read and grow from there. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So now what we want to talk about is want to overlap the obvious a bit because sometimes we lose it in the simple things, right? So apart from academic success, where a parent gets to brag that their child or children are top of their classes and stuff, I want you to help us pinpoint very clearly and in a practical sense, whether it is personal, psychological, social, spiritual, all the benefits of reading for children, that you can lay your hands on.
Okay, well, like you said, the list is endless, really, the benefits of reading. But reading is not first about the academic prowess of your child. It's about training the muscle of their mind to be able to think. So people who read, children who read become adults who think, and adults who think become leaders. And I would paint a picture for you. Imagine if we all had a book on Spider-Man, for example, and you've never seen Spider-Man before. You're just reading the book, and it say, Spider-Man did this, jumped up. I mean, say Spider-Man because please forgive me, everyone, because I have little kids, so that's what we talk about most of the time. And then they are describing the motions and the activities and everything. The picture I have in my mind is going to be completely different from the picture you have in your mind. The the subtle details of the things he's doing, whether he's smiling, if he looks black, he has a beard, he doesn't have a beard, he has you know all those things will be colored by the experiences and the imagination that each person has, you see now. So um um the the idea or the goal of reading is just to build those muscles, start learning, be imaginative, be creative, start thinking, oh, so this can be this way, and all those things. That's the first step. Now, one of the byproducts is because you're now able to think, you can now assimilate better, and then it shows up in the academics. One other place that shows up is in the confidence, because if you read well, you will speak well, and you'll be able to communicate how you feel or the information you want to communicate in a clearer manner, because now you have, your vocabulary has been stretched. You know all these words that can explain and describe in depth all the things you want to say. So children who read will a lot of times be very confident, and they would also be leaders because not everyone is able to give that time it takes. So if they pay the price to sit down and read, one of the dividends of that investment is that they would naturally be leaders because they will see things that others would naturally not see. And then they'll be able to make the informed decisions that others would naturally not do. So they are already ahead of their, the pack. Like I said in that quote, the experiences I've had and the experiences of other people that I have read puts me in a class of my own. So I don't have to have lived 1 million lives, but if I can read those books, understand where they're coming from, get the lessons based on where I am at, then I'm able to, take several steps forward than someone who is just learning purely based on, experience. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, quick one then would be, what do you think some parents and caregivers do that sort of kill children's interest in reading or attempting to read?
Hmm. Um, there are a few, and I think I mentioned one before, which is just comparing your child to other people who started maybe earlier than you and all that. It would just put a lot of pressure around reading. Reading should first be enjoyed before, whether it's teaching you anything, just enjoy what you're doing. So one of the things is the comparison. It's quite unfair because you don't know where that child's there from. And then you're starting from a lot. So you can't compare. That's one. Another thing also is the shame that sometimes adults attach to reading. And when I say shame, when I started going to the library, there were a few people who say, what are you doing here? You're oversabi, you're doing too much. What are you trying to prove? That kind of thing, and then when I'm trying to engage in a conversation that I believe is an intellectual conversation, I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to hear your opinion and think logically. They're like, you're being too much. You want to show us that you've read, that kind of this thing. Thankfully, my parents and some of my teachers and some of the adults in my environment were very pro reading. So it didn't have too much of an effect. But if it was the other way around, I probably would have gotten discouraged. There's also the trauma that sometimes is attached to reading. As a child, I never got beaten for not being able to pronounce a word. So I would instead get referred to my dictionary I told you about, or just get taught, how to. So if you're always scolding your child or giving them extreme measures of discipline because they're not able to read, why can't you read this? What is wrong with you? All those kind of, you're just discouraging them from the future that you want to create. And so those are some of the things, discouraging, putting shame, attaching trauma, and also the environment. If you expose them, your reading children, to an environment where they don't see reading. Imagine as a child reading maybe a book, something like a history piece or something, and you want to talk about it, and everyone around you is just, lamenting about their life problems. It's just a matter of time before you start dropping the book and listening to, other things. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's very important as parents that we curate the environment, we surround ourselves with people who are also moving in the same direction that we are.
Okay, okay, fantastic. Now, this question I want to ask you, you've sort of touched on it
Okay.
earlier, but just to make it clearer. So, how would you recommend uh, how parents should introduce their children to reading uh, as it relates to the types of books? At what age? Maybe not strictly, but in groups. At what age? Where to where should this sort of book be done? Where to where should this sort of book be done? So that someone could live here, or someone who gets to watch this later could live here with a clear picture of where to begin.
Where to begin? Okay. If your children, your child is much younger, say anywhere below 10 years, I would say um, look for colorful books, books with a lot of color. If they are past that stage, you would know from the feedback you get. So if your child is like 9 and they're already past the colorful books era, once you bring the colorful books, you would hear, "Oh, I don't want this book, daddy or mommy, So you take that feedback and then you move on with it. But just rule of thumb, below 10 years, get books that have a lot of colors. And um, short stories, nothing too overwhelming, short stories that you can repeat. I would, I remember this scenario or this thing that happened when my daughter won Star Reader in her school at the age of 4. She was graduating from nursery and she read her school news at the graduation. And there was a question of, oh, what are you doing? How's your child reading at this age and all that? But in thinking back, I realized that we had like 2 books from when she was born. And even though I wasn't consistent like every day religiously, most of the times, I'll take the book. So when she was like less than 2 years, we'll just look at the pictures, no reading, just pointing to the pictures and pointing to the colors to say, oh, this is this color, this is red, and this is blue. And she will flip the page and I'll clap for her. And I'll say, okay, this is white. Of course, at that age, they just repeat anything you say. And we gradually moved from that to counting. It was a book about the bush rat. Can't remember the author. So we started counting the bush rats designs that were on the book, and we'll count 1 to like maybe 50 something. And she'll flip the page and I'll clap and I'll say, that's the end. We'll drop the book. And we moved from that to naming the animals that were on each page. At this point, I had not started doing any reading. There was a whole story, but she wouldn't understand, what I was doing. So we were just engaging with the book. So we moved from naming the animals to me telling her the story, not reading, just paraphrasing the story for each page. And again, she would flip the page. And that was how we got to reading, line by line. And now she just loves to read. But it wasn't like an anointing that just fell. It was something that started
Yeah.
gradually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have children above 10, maybe teenagers, they are not about to start reading Cinderella or something like that. But at that stage, you need to be careful because I was exposed to the bad side of reading, which is reading books that had sexually explicit materials in them. And that wasn't, I think that was because some of the adults around me didn't even know that, maybe they didn't know, I don't know, but they just kind of turned a blind eye to it. So you read all sorts of crazy stuff. But there are books that, teach them about family life, about, things relating, things that they're now interested in and that they're becoming more aware of in ways that don't become problematic much later on. There are books that are like romance novels without the explicit materials. And that is why, as a parent, you must read. You have to read so that you can be aware of all these things. Yeah. So, um, I think the third thing I would say would be also watch out for the interest of your child. There are children who naturally don't, tend towards fiction. They just want give it straight, give them money books and all that, and they're fine. Yeah, so expose them to different genres of books and then see what they gravitate towards. When I was in SS3, my dad gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad as a gift.
Wow.
And I didn't even know it was like a bestseller then. I just think that my dad gave me this book and it was so interesting. And I just read it like that. But I picked some things from it. There are things now that I'm like, I got it from this book. So he also gave me, there's this book, Imitation is Limitation. Because
Yeah, John
if
Masonism.
a friend of mine who had older siblings had used to bring novels to school now. And she was like, every time I'm bringing books for you, you bring one from your house. So I went to bring Imitation is Limitation
Oh
and gave
dear.
her. And she was like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Indeed.
It was such an awkward
Yeah.
this thing. But those were the
Mm.
books we had at home, apart from the ones I could get from the library, so and that's inspired my love for, motivational and self-development books because we had lots, we had tons of
Wow.
them at home. So expose them to all sorts, and they don't have to like the books you like. Just move with them at their pace and continue modeling and enjoy your own reading because I believe the excitement that you get from enjoying your own reading, it rubs off on them. The books
Interesting.
my parents read, they were never boring to them. So we saw them enjoy the things they were, they love to read, talk about the books they read. And we too, we just followed suit. Really, we love to read, and that was it.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Now, at the moment, we have 10 other people here,
Okay.
and it's been me and it's been you. So let's just take a pause. Of course, I still have other questions, but to be fair to the participation here, so anyone, any comments, any contribution, any question, this is the part where you either mute yourself and if you are the first person, you start talking, or you drop the message in the chat if you're not in a place where you can speak, or however you do it. This is the time and this is open for questions, contribution, reaction, and stuff. We'll wait some seconds for somebody. Okay, there's a question there. For someone who may become a parent, uh, so the first question there is for someone who may become a parent one day, what habits or values create readers long before a child can actually read. Did you get that?
Yes, I got that.
Okay.
Okay, so habits and values that create readers long before the child can read. One of the habits is before you become a parent, start taking ownership of your time. Start creating structure in your day-to-day life. It's like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And then when you actually have children, it's easier for you to, you know, put structure in their lives. Secondly, start reading. Start finding out what you enjoy. Find out the kind of books you enjoy as a person. Read them. However long it takes you, it's not a marathon. Just get into this space where you enjoy what you're doing. Once you have those two habits down pat, when you have children, it will be difficult for you not to teach them to read because this is something that's not a chore. You're not reading to pass an exam or anything. You're just doing something you like. So if I had to talk to someone before they became parents, those would be the two things. Start learning how to create structure. Because if you enjoy reading and you don't have structure, then time will run away from you.
Okay. So my understanding of the question too is, I mean, the answer you've given is worth it and really helps. Yeah, but I think there's another angle where
Okay.
she could mean that, of course, there's a point where the child actually is actually able to read, not when the child is born, you know.
Okay.
So what happens? What's those habits that you start instilling in the child ahead of when the child is then actually able to read?
To read on their own. Okay.
Yes.
Um, you expose them to books. I gave a story of, my journey with my daughter. We're still on the journey and how we started. So bedtime stories, as cliche as that sounds, it actually helps. You start reading, you read to them, you show them the books, you show them the words, you engage them with it. It's it's at that point they're like sponges, they soak up everything that you're doing. So I have a 2-year-old who, once you tell her it's bedtime, she says, book, book, book. That she just, and she will not stop until she gets the book. Can she read? No. But she knows that, okay, I'll show her pictures and then I'll say, clap for yourself. She'll clap for herself. End of reading. That's already creating an awareness, you know. So if I just put on the TV, that's what she'll know. That, oh, we'll just watch TV. But because I'm putting the book, during the day, I give her plain sheets. She's always scribbling. It creates that awareness. So when she gets to the age of reading, she's not getting anything, it's not something new. She has always been in that space. And the truth is, the even when a child is in the womb, if you read aloud to them, they're already beginning to form, their brain is already beginning to store the information, the rise and fall of your voice, the calmness and everything. That's information that is just filed away in their brain. So those are the things that a child starts picking up. Their brain picks it up. Their brain picks up the vocabulary. A child that is read to will speak faster. So their brain is picking up what you're saying. It's picking up the tone, is reading, the language and all that. So when they eventually start reading, it's like wildfire. They just pick up that fast.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, any more question, contribution from someone? I think we're 7 minutes to
Okay.
go. Oh,
All
fantastic.
right. Good evening, everyone. This is Brendan TPK. So, so happy to see my friend Chama doing what she knows how best to do.
I'm so
Mm.
happy to
Okay.
see
And-
it.
Okay. I must say, I am, because I know I struggled to join. I just got home now, so I've been trying to listen while on the way. And the values I've got, even from the few minutes I tried to key in, has been massive, massive, massive. Okay, I just want to appreciate this forum for this sensitization. There are some things you think you actually know until you get to listen to those who know better. I'm really much impressed. Choma will not stop
Fantastic.
wowing us. And then you, Cornel, you know how to ask the right questions to make us get all the ingredients in this topic. All right. I
Thank you.
just want to say thank you and thank you. Then a little question for those of us who are in a society that is not even organized, society that is that is always under pressure. Okay, like for instance, I just got home now. Let's go to now. Maybe my kids are, if I'm not staying with them at the moment, maybe if I'm staying with them by now, they should have been sleeping, all things being equal. And maybe with the mom who is already from one or two from the day's chores. So how can a woman, because most times it is them that helps us in this. How can someone with all the pressure still get to do all these things and remain sane? Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, this session wouldn't have been complete without this question. So,
Yeah,
Chioma, are you
okay.
there? Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much for the question, Dr. TVK, my very good friend. In Even in saner climes, quote unquote, there's always pressure. The pressure doesn't go away. But the main thing, like I talked about structure, is thinking of finding ways to make it work. Do you have to read to the bedtime stories every day? On paper, yes. In reality, you probably won't be able to do that. And I don't think I've ever met an adult who had half a head because they didn't get, they didn't get the bedtime stories every day. But some of the things we can do is, can we make maybe weekend? Can we do 30 minutes every weekend to read and ask questions? That's one way to go about it. Can we do 30 minutes a month, like bottom line, like at all? Even if you're not with the kids, you can schedule 30 minutes on so day, and then you start creating the awareness. Daddy and the kids, we're going to have special moments, special time next week. When you call again the next day, do you remember that, daddy and the kids were having special moments? You tell me, or you start building that excitement. And then it's just whatever it is you can do, whether you're reading to them over the phone or reading to them via video call, or they're telling you the things they've learned, or they're telling you the things they've read, and they're asking questions. That's a seed that you're already planting in them. They will forever look forward to it. I don't know if you're here when I shared the story about my siblings and I reading the John Grisham novel with my dad. We didn't ever finish the book. We did not finish it. But those moments, they were so impactful. And when I say John, if you know John Grisham, they are big volumes. They are not little books. And we would read, even if it's 7 pages or 3 pages, we're able to do. Once it's bedtime, someone starts dozing, we continue the next day. Unfortunately, we didn't finish the book, but that's a moment that will forever be in my mind. So however you can make it work. If you're a working parent, you don't have the time every day, you're just barely trying to survive. Create the time. Deprioritize the things that will not get you to the goal, which is a reading child, a leading child, a thinking child. You don't have to go for every party every weekend. Maybe one party, just one weekend, switch off your phone. Sit at home with your kids. Do 30 minutes. Do 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of coloring, 10 minutes of, just writing, whatever, scribbling, anything, and then play. And I think that just
Fantastic.
ties it up. So those are some of the, I may not be able to speak to everybody's situation, but if you sit down and say, this reading is like eating, how can we do it? Let's just get something into this child one way or the other. You'd be able to come up with strategies that work for your situation.
Fantastic, fantastic. And this is exactly 1 minute to 9. Yeah, so so two things. Sandra, which I imagine is your sister because she has the same surname as you before, is very grateful. She expresses her gratitude. Thank you for the amazing insights and that she has learned so much personally. And then someone said that Joyce also finally got the chance to join now. And please, I know I need to catch up. So a quick one, it's 9 o'clock already, a couple of announcements. So by later this night or tomorrow morning, so the whole thing has been recorded and will go on our YouTube channel. So for those of us who registered, we'll email the links to you. Or if you go to YouTube now and just search the Game Changers Leadership Promotion Network, you'll be able to find it. Then if you subscribe to the channel or turn on the notification, as soon as it goes up there, you'll be of course notified. And then if you want to follow other things we do, if you go on LinkedIn and search Game Changers Leadership Promotion Network, you will see our LinkedIn page. Everything we do, we update there. And the two announcements, quick one is on Sunday by 6 p.m., still on Zoom. We'll put out, okay, the advert is already out there. Maybe we'll add it to the email we'll be sending to us. If you're able to join, we'll be reviewing this book, which is quite an interesting one, The Art of Spending Money by Morgan Housel. Yeah, you'll love it. I'm reading it currently and it's amazing. And then secondly, on Sunday at the book review, we'll be announcing or we'll be opening up application for a book club. We're starting a book club. Yeah, so the application will open that day over a couple of days and weeks before we start properly in the next month. So I want to thank you for making our time to come around. And then we want to especially thank Chioma, our very good friend, who has not disappointed. Yeah, she's, and I wish we had all the time. Yeah, I wish we had all the time. Yeah, so thank you so much. So, Chioma, what will be your last word? Look a parent in the eye and say one last word.
Okay, look a parents in the eye. Parents, you've got this. You can do this. You can do this. Start with you and every other thing will follow suit. And it's fine to fail on some days, but don't give up. We have to raise these leaders.
Fantastic. And then Kingsley is thanking me and he's also thanking you. Thank you too, Kingsley. Thank you for coming around. And we hope to see you guys in subsequent events we notify you about. Thank you so much and have a good evening to all of us. Thank you.